The debate has been raging for over a decade, and both sides are wrong. On one side, you have the vinyl purists, people who will tell you that digital audio is a soulless corpse of what music used to be. That when Spotify compresses a recording down to a 320 kilobit stream, it is committing a kind of violence against the artist. That the warmth they feel when a needle drops on wax is not nostalgia, it is physics. On the other side, you have the streaming rationalists. People who will show you blind test after blind test proving that the human ear cannot distinguish a lossless 24-bit file from a well-mastered 320 kilobits per second stream. That the vinyl warmth is not fidelity. It is distortion. That romanticizing a format that physically degrades with every play is not audiophilia. It is theater. And then there is a third group. Smaller, not quieter. The ones who looked at this argument years ago understood what was actually being debated and walked away. Here is what almost nobody in this conversation is willing to say out loud. The vinyl versus streaming debate was never about audio quality. It was never about waveforms, dynamic range, or signal-to-noise ratios. Those are the weapons people reach for. But they are not the real battlefield. The real battlefield is identity. It is the story you tell yourself about the kind of person you are when you listen to music. And the moment you understand that, the entire war dissolves, and something much more interesting takes its place. In this video, we are going to do 3 things that the rest of this debate never does. We are going to examine the actual science, not the cherry-picked version that either side waves around, but the complete, uncomfortable picture. We are going to look at what vinyl actually does to a recording versus what streaming actually delivers. And then we are going to talk about why none of that matters as much as something the industry spent 40 years trying to hide. By the end of this video, you will never argue about this topic the same way again. Not because you will have changed your preference, but because you will finally understand what your preference is actually about. We are going to cover the physics of why vinyl sounds the way it does, the specific technical choices that Spotify, Apple Music, and Tidal make that affect what reaches your ears. A piece of history from the 1970s that both camps have conveniently forgotten. And the real reason the vinyl revival happened, which has almost nothing to do with audio quality, might and everything to do with a quiet catastrophe that digital audio created without anyone noticing. If you have been waiting for a channel that treats audio history like it deserves to be treated, not as nostalgia, but as evidence, now is the time to subscribe. Because what comes next changes the whole argument. To understand the vinyl debate, you have to understand what a record actually is. And most people, even passionate collectors, do not fully grasp this. A vinyl record is a mechanical representation of an audio wave, not a digital approximation, not a compressed file. A physical groove cut into polyvinyl chloride that traces the exact shape of the sound pressure wave that was recorded. When a stylus, a tiny diamond or sapphire tip, traces that groove, it vibrates. That vibration moves a coil inside a magnetic field, generating a voltage. That voltage is amplified and converted into speaker movement, which moves air, which reaches your ears. This process is so direct, so mechanically intimate with the original recording, that it introduces something digital formats fundamentally cannot replicate. It also introduces its own artifacts, its own imperfections, its own character. Think of it this way. A vinyl record is like a handwritten letter. You can read every word, but you can also see the pressure of the pen, the slight tremor in a difficult sentence, the ink that ran a little thin near the edge of the page. None of that is the message, but all of it is real, and all of it arrived. A digital file is a typed printout of the same letter. Every word is perfectly legible, perfectly reproduced. But the pressure of the pen is gone. The tremor is gone. What you receive is technically more accurate, and experientially, something is missing. This is not a flaw in digital audio. This is its design. Digital audio was engineered specifically to eliminate those artifacts, to give you the message without the noise. The question, the real question that neither camp ever answers cleanly, is whether those artifacts were noise to begin with. Here is the first loop we need to leave open. The answer is not what you think, and it has nothing to do with which format is more accurate. Because as we are about to discover, the most important thing that happened to recorded music in the digital era was not a technical decision. It was a business decision. And it changed what we were actually hearing without telling anyone. In 1982, the compact disc arrived, and the industry made a promise. On digital audio, they said, would deliver recordings with a dynamic range of up to 96 decibels. For context, the dynamic range of a live orchestra, from the softest pianissimo to the full force of the brass section, is roughly 80 decibels. A vinyl record, at best, manages about 70. The CD was going to be more alive than reality itself. That promise was kept, technically. And then it was immediately, systematically dismantled by the people who were supposed to protect it. Through the late 1980s and into the 1990s, record labels discovered something about human psychology. When you play a louder song next to a quieter one, most people will say the louder song sounds better. Not more accurate, not more musical, just better, more energetic, more present, more like it deserves attention. So producers and mastering engineers began doing something that audio engineers today call the loudness war. They began compressing the dynamic range of recordings, pushing the quiet parts up, limiting the peaks, to make everything louder, not to improve the music, to win the psychoacoustic battle of attention. By the early 2000s, albums were being mastered at levels that obliterated the very dynamic range the CD format had promised. A rock album from 2002 might have a dynamic range of 6 decibels. 6. A whisper to a shout. The quiet passages and the loud passages lived in almost the same acoustic neighborhood, relentlessly competing for your brain. Metallica's Death Magnetic, released in 2008, became a landmark case. The version sold on Guitar Hero, limited by the video game's audio engine, was measurably, audibly better than the version on the CD. The game had accidentally undone the damage the mastering engineers had done intentionally. Fans noticed. The internet exploded. The industry mostly shrugged. Now here is what this has to do with vinyl, and why it matters more than any frequency response curve. Vinyl cannot be compressed the same way. Not because of some romantic property of the format, because of physics. If you try to cut a groove with the same hyper-compressed waveform used on modern CDs, the stylus cannot track it. The groove walls collapse into each other. The record becomes unplayable. So vinyl releases, even of modern albums, are almost always mastered differently, with more dynamic range, with quieter peaks and deeper valleys, with the music allowed to breathe the way the musicians actually played it. This means that in many cases, the reason a vinyl record sounds better to you is not because vinyl is a superior format. It is because you are hearing a completely different master, a less damaged version of the same recording. You are not experiencing the warmth of analog. You are experiencing the absence of a crime. Let that sit for a moment. The vinyl revival was not a rejection of digital technology. It was an accidental protest against how the industry was using it. This channel exists because stories like this one were buried in technical forums and never made it into the mainstream conversation. If you want to hear the rest of what was buried, subscribe. The next chapter goes even deeper. Now let us talk about Spotify and streaming in general, with the same level of precision we just applied to vinyl. Now, Spotify's standard stream is encoded in Ogg Vorbis at 320 kilobits per second. Apple Music and Amazon HD offer lossless ALAC files. Tidal has built its entire identity around MQA, Master Quality Authenticated, a format that claims to deliver studio-quality masters in a compressed package. Each of these formats makes different technical compromises. But the most important thing any of them delivers, or fails to deliver, is not determined by the codec. It is determined by the master file they start with. Here is what the streaming platforms do not advertise. Most of what is available on these services was ingested from the same damaged, hyper-compressed masters that ruined the CD era. The format improved, the pipeline improved, the source files often did not. Nay, when Tidal tells you it is delivering master quality, it means the file was provided by the label at the highest resolution they offered. It says nothing about whether that master has 6 decibels of dynamic range or 20. It says nothing about whether a mastering engineer spent 40 hours on it, or whether it was a rushed, loudness-maximized product of a contractual obligation. Apple Music's spatial audio feature, launched in 2021 with considerable fanfare, does something genuinely interesting. It remixes certain tracks into Dolby Atmos, a 3-dimensional sound format that places instruments in a space around the listener rather than in a flat stereo field. Some of these remixes are extraordinary. Some are disorienting. Almost none of them are what the original artist intended, because Dolby Atmos did not exist when most of these albums were recorded. So now we have a situation where a song recorded in 1971, mixed in stereo by the artist on equipment worth a fraction of what you carry in your pocket, is being algorithmically remixed into a spatial audio experience by engineers working for a subscription platform, delivered to earbuds through a Bluetooth connection that introduces its own compression layer. Is that better? Is that worse? The answer is that it is a different thing entirely. And presenting it as fidelity is its own kind of fiction. Vinyl does not have a spatial audio feature. A vinyl record sounds exactly the way it was mastered in the year it was pressed. Even if that year was 1974 and the mastering engineer was Gene Paul working on a Led Zeppelin album in a room full of the finest analog equipment money could buy, then what reaches your ears is precisely what he intended. Without algorithmic enhancement, without platform processing, without a company deciding what better should sound like. And here's the loop that has been building since the beginning of this video. The thing that changes how you hear both formats. Fidelity is not a fixed destination. It is a chain of decisions. And every link in that chain was made by someone. A mastering engineer, a label executive, a product manager, a codec designer, who had their own agenda. The question is not which format is more faithful. The question is faithful to what and to whom. In 2016, the vinyl industry crossed $1 billion in annual sales for the first time since 1988, 20 years after the CD was supposed to have killed it permanently. In the same year, Spotify had 100 million active users streaming 30 million songs. Both of these things were happening simultaneously, in the same culture, often in the same households, sometimes in the same person. Sociologists, music journalists, and tech commentators spent enormous energy trying to explain this apparent contradiction. The most common explanation was that vinyl was a luxury product, a lifestyle accessory, a reaction against digital overload, that people were buying records they never played, keeping them as totems in Instagram-ready living rooms. Some of that is true, but it misses something more fundamental about what was actually happening. But streaming did something to music that had never been done before in the history of recorded sound. It made music infinitely available. For the first time, any song ever recorded, millions of them, was one search away, immediately, at no marginal cost per listen. And when anything is infinitely available, something strange happens to how it feels. The scarcity that gave a song its weight, the fact that you had to choose it, buy it, carry it home, sit down with it, disappeared. Music became ambient, background, a utility like electricity or water, present everywhere, commanding attention nowhere. The vinyl revival is not a rejection of streaming's convenience. Most people who buy records also use Spotify. The two coexist easily. What vinyl provides that streaming structurally cannot is something completely different. It provides a ritual. You select a record, you remove it from its sleeve, you clean it if you care about it, you set the needle, you sit down, you commit to 20 minutes of one side of one album. You cannot shuffle, you cannot skip without getting up. The music has your full attention because the format demanded it before the first note played. This is not nostalgia, this is psychology, and it has nothing to do with frequency response. The audiophile who insists vinyl sounds better is not wrong. They are just describing the wrong variable. The experience is better. The focus is better. The memory formed around that listening session is richer and more durable. Not because the waveform is more accurate, but because the ritual made them present. And the streaming rationalist who insists the double-blind test proves no audible difference is also not wrong. They are just answering a question nobody was actually asking. Two people, both telling the truth, talking past each other for 30 years. Because the argument was always about something that neither side was willing to name directly. Here is the complete picture, assembled from all the evidence. Vinyl records are not technically superior to high-resolution digital audio. In terms of frequency response, noise floor, channel separation, and immunity to physical degradation, a well-mastered 24-bit FLAC file wins every specification comparison. But most people are not listening to well-mastered 24-bit FLAC files. They are listening to Spotify streams sourced from masters that were compressed and mutilated during the loudness war, and comparing them to vinyl releases that were mastered more carefully by format necessity. The comparison is not format versus format. It is good mastering versus bad mastering, with the formats as the delivery mechanism. Streaming platforms have the technical capacity to deliver audio that exceeds what vinyl can physically store. Most of them have not fully used that capacity because the labels that supply their content spent 20 years optimizing for loudness rather than fidelity, and the cleanup is still ongoing. Vinyl provides something streaming cannot architect by design, a listening ritual that forces attention, creates memory, and transforms passive consumption into an active, embodied experience. And this is not a small thing. This may be the most important thing. And the loudness war, the actual crime at the center of this story, was never really about vinyl versus digital. It was about the music industry using digital technology's unlimited headroom to extract attention at the expense of art. It happened in the CD era. It migrated to streaming. And it will apply to whatever format comes next, unless listeners understand what is actually being done to the recordings. Which is why arguments that stay at the format level, vinyl versus Spotify, warm versus cold, analog versus digital, will always miss the point. The format is not the variable that matters. The mastering decision is the variable that matters. The intent of the people in the chain between the performer and your ears is the variable that matters. The people who know this are a smaller group. They listen on vinyl when they want to be present. They seek out high-quality masters when they stream. They read the production credits. They know the name of the mastering engineer the way a film person knows the name of the cinematographer. They stopped arguing about formats years ago because they understood that the argument was designed to distract them from asking the harder question. The harder question is this: when was the last time you actually listened? Not had music playing, not worked with a playlist in the background, not picked a song to fill silence. Listened, sat with an album from the first track to the last, heard the decisions the musicians made in the arrangement, noticed the room ambiance on a recording from 1969. Let a piece of music have your full, uninterrupted attention for 40 minutes. Vinyl forces that question by its nature. Streaming makes it possible to avoid that question forever. Neither is the point. The point is whether you choose to ask it. The vinyl versus Spotify debate will keep going. Reddit threads will keep getting written. Audiophile forums will keep running the same frequency comparisons. And that is fine. There is genuine technical interest in those discussions, for those who want to go that deep. But the people who walk away from that argument are not surrendering. They are graduating. They have understood that the medium is only as important as what you do with it. That a 50-year-old pressing played through a mid-range turntable in a living room with someone you love is a more complete audio experience than a lossless master played alone through reference headphones while checking email. Not because of the format, because of the intention. The equipment does not create the experience. The human being in front of the equipment does. And that has been true since the first time someone dropped a needle on a record, and will remain true long after whatever format replaces both of these. The war was never about vinyl and Spotify. It was about whether music still had the power to stop you in your tracks. And who was responsible for making sure it did. If this channel gave you something to think about, something beyond specs and format wars and brand tribalism, then this is where you belong. Subscribe to Vintalgico, because the history of audio is full of stories like this one, and most of them have never been told the right way.